Hey everyone, welcome back to TLN Connects. Today I have the pleasure of speaking to Curtis Stone. He is the chef behind LA-based Michelin-starred restaurant Maude, and he is the host of our brand new show premiering on TLN, Field Trip with Curtis Stone. Curtis, thank you for joining us. Welcome to Canada.
Oh, thank you so much. I wish I could come there in person. I love Canada. It's been too long since I've been up there, but it's nice to see you virtually.
I was going to ask that actually. We're not necessarily a culinary capital of the world, but I mean, like Australia, we do have so many different immigrant communities and influences in our cuisine. Have you had a chance to explore much of the food scene here?
I have, he's my old sous chef, Chris, an English guy who I worked with for many years in London. He actually met someone from Canada and they moved back there and got married. She was someone with a group of friends that all worked in the kitchens that we had in London. And so I have my little Canadian posse, I call them. And whenever I come up, they take me to all the hot restaurants in Toronto and, of course, beautiful home cooked meals at their places. So, in fact, they've gone on to open a little orchard. They make cider, West Avenue cider. It's delicious. If you haven't tried it, you should check it out.
Amazing. Well, shout out to Canada then. Shout out to Chris. Curtis, I want to ask you about your show. I mean, you've had the opportunity to travel all over the world, but specifically, let's get into Italy because here at TLN, we do love our Italian cuisine quite a bit. You went to Umbria, you went to Lombardy, and we all know so much about the classic Italian dishes, but was there a moment or perhaps a dish or a technique that really took you by surprise?
Well, Lombardy is one of those places, or Lombardia as they call it. It's one of those places that it's a little more off the beaten path. And it was a region that was so rich in food and culture. It's up in the mountainous areas. There's incredible caviar. They make this wonderful sparkling wine from a place called Franciacorta, which I've never heard of. And I've always been a snob when it comes to champagne. I'm like, well, no one makes it like the French, sparkling wine. I've just never been huge on it. But Franciacorta is really, really good. Caldabosco is the winery that we went and visited. And we met a little cheesemaker who made this wonderful mountain cheese called Silta. I learned that up in that region of Italy, they cook a lot with butter because of the dairy production, because you always think of Italian food and olive oil going hand in hand. So there was so much to learn when I was there. And of course, it's in this sort of high mountainous area. So there's lots of tourism, but all Italian tourism. At least all the people that we ran into were Italians, and so we were up in this sort of resort style area, but it felt more villagey than a snow resort, if you know what I mean. It was really beautiful.
And this is obviously one of the highlights of the trip, but what was your favorite place? I mean, out of everything you did in season one, what is that one place that you'd want to go back and keep exploring and keep learning from?
I'm torn because my first instinct is to say it was when I took my American crew back to Australia, because I got to show off, beautiful parts of Australia. We went to Western Australia and I got to sort of show them an area called the Kimberleys, and we met these Aboriginal elders and they took us out into, their country and told us all about, that they've existed in Australia for 100,000 years, until a couple of hundred years ago when white people arrived. And it's the oldest continuous culture in the world, and I'm super proud of it. And I'm so in envy of that way of the world. And it's interesting going back to where you're from and rediscovering it, because that's sort of a part of this, even though you might be just down the road from something, you might never have learnt about it. So that was really cool. But Italy was so beautiful. And I mean, we went to I really can't decide. We went to Rioja in Spain, which was just magical, up in the mountains, and everything was beautiful and green and damp and wintry. It was just special.
And I think for me, one of the most underrated places to really get to learn about food is South America. As a South American myself, I feel like more and more we're seeing the growth of Peruvian cuisine, Nikkei, Argentina for their asados. Is this an area that you've had the chance to explore yet, or is it something that is on the list and that we might get to see in the future?
I have been to South America a few times and I love it. The culture is so rich and so different than, anything you're used to. It's just vibrant and everyone's smiling and dancing, and, it's passionate, and it's a beautiful, beautiful place. I spent time in Brazil and I've spent time in Argentina. So I dream of going back there to film, because I've only scratched the surface and there's so much more for me to see and learn. I am on my way to Costa Rica in a couple of weeks, which we're very excited about. I know it's not South America,
Amazing.
Central America, but beautiful culture as well.
And are you there for filming? Are we going to see some of this in Field Trip with Curtis Stone? Or is it just, a well-deserved holiday after not being able to travel for a year and a half?
So I always mix my business and pleasure together, and it is a vacation with my family. But I'll be scouting and checking out what we should come back and film for sure. So yeah, look out for it because we'll be heading to that part of the world soon.
Amazing. And now, taking in all of the travel, all of the cultures you've experienced, all of the cuisines, what does the word multiculturalism mean to you, and how is that reflected in what you do at your restaurants?
Well, good question. There's a variety of ways to interpret it, I guess, right? Like multiculturalism can mean there's multiple cultures all living side by side, and I think that that's a beautiful thing. In America, there's a slightly different approach to it, I guess. It's a bit more of an integrative attitude that we all live under this one umbrella or flag or whatever you want to call it. These United States of America that have different influences from everywhere. To me, I just love culture, and I love experiencing it, and I like getting to know different people through their food and their music and just their way of life. It's a beautiful the difference is what makes it all so special, in my humble opinion. And I think that it doesn't matter where you are, we're all the same. And getting to experience new things is just a joy. And through the pandemic, we've had that opportunity to travel taken away from us a little bit. So hopefully Field Trip brings people that little spark and memory of their travels and gets them excited about where they're going to go to next.
Amazing. Now, Curtis, before we let you go, I was reading up a little bit about you, and I heard somewhere that you're a bit of a soccer fan. And at TLN, we do absolutely love our soccer. We have the Copa America, we have the Euros. Is there someone in particular this summer that you are going to be cheering for?
I think for the first time in a long time, England stands a really good chance in the European Championship. And, I lived in England for 10 years, so I certainly have a soft spot for them. It's going to be an interesting tournament for sure. I love it. I get really excited around these tournaments. So, yeah, I'll be rooting for England this year.
Amazing. Curtis, thank you so much for joining us. We're so excited to have Field Trip with Curtis Stone on TLN and hopefully to welcome you back in Canada once the borders open up.
I'll be knocking on the door as soon as they let me. Good to see you.